As much as I enjoyed The Witcher, The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, and this gorgeous hardcover edition of it, some things that really bother me about these prints, stuff like this, inspired Netflix series. And the other most terrible thing is this. Whoever invented permanent fake stickers is terrible. But let's talk about the book, shall we? Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So The Last Wish is technically book one of the Witcher series, and this was my introduction to the book series in general because I actually came from a big gaming background before I ever got back into fantasy reading, and I had no idea anything about these books, this book series, anything like that. I played The Witcher 1, 2, and 3, all fantastic games, especially for their time. And I didn't even know that they took place after this entire book series finishes. So everything that I knew about Geralt, Renfri, Dandelion, Yennefer, Triss, the entire cast were from the games. So it was actually cool to go back and then read The Last Wish, which I actually read after the Netflix series aired. So I'm like all out of order on this stuff. But after having all that base knowledge and then going back and reading this book, it was super interesting to see where this all actually started. Because, like I said, I had never read these books. I didn't really even know that they existed until after the games and the TV show. But The Last Wish was great. It was a lot of fun. I like seeing Geralt in this form because, again, I know him from the games, but the game description of him and the way that he acts, clearly you can see Netflix pulled that rendition of his character, and I see a lot of that in the writing as well. So The Last Wish, for those of you that don't know, is a collection of short stories. I believe it was 6 of them, and it's essentially side quests that Geralt goes on. Now, Geralt is a witcher, so he is effectively a monster hunter for hire. He takes whatever kind of funds he can get, meager amounts of gold, hefty amounts of gold, whatever they're offering, to slay monsters, whether it be a werewolf, vampire, spriggan, whatever monster there is, he is hired to go kill them. Now, what I enjoyed about Geralt as the character is, much like the games and Henry Cavill in the TV show, he's very stoic, doesn't use a whole lot of words. He kind of like gets his point across without speaking too much, but he's very strong silent type, sort of, and he clearly has an edge to him that you don't really want to mess with him, because he's one of these last witchers that are alive in this world, and they are basically badass monster hunters that everyone kind of is scared of and hates. And you see that kind of through line throughout all of these different stories where, you know, they're hired to kill these monsters because they're the only ones that can do it, but they're also hated and kind of outcast from society just because they're considered freaks, basically, because they are, I believe the way a Witcher is created is through some kind of magic process to basically turn them into a Witcher, taken at a young age, trained in combat, magic, all sorts of stuff, and effectively transformed to not be a human anymore. So they're a freak to society. You see that in the games, you see that in the show, you see that in the book. But what I did like about this book structure is that in these different short stories, because they're sort of side quests, they're just kind of open and closed cases with a little bit of a running theme throughout. There is I believe it's called The Voice of Reason. There's these little mini chapters, maybe like a page to 3 pages long before each chapter, where it's kind of just world building in between all these different chapters. And each story in itself is kind of like a retelling of a fairy tale. So the one that everyone always points to is Beauty and the Beast, probably because it was the most obvious one in here, where there's clearly somebody who has, for some reason, by magic, been transformed into a beast-like creature, and Geralt was sent to kill him and then talks to him, and they actually spend a lot of time talking. I don't want to spoil anything else about the book, but that's just an example of what these fairy tale retellings are through the lens of Andrzej Sapkowski in a fantasy book with a witcher who is a monster hunter. So obviously there's that twist on all these different fairy tales, which makes it way more interesting, honestly. You'll find a lot of the typical fantasy tropes and settings, themes like that you see in pretty much all of fantasy. You've got wizards, witches, monsters, magic, sword fighting. All that good stuff is here. You do meet a couple of the great characters that I mentioned previously. You do meet Renfri, who's a fantastic character, super strong female character in this. You do meet Yennefer as well, which is Geralt's love interest. That's all I'm going to say about that. You meet her at some point in this book. And I can understand kind of the criticism that the Netflix series got, where people were kind of confused, because The Last Wish is what that was mostly based on, and then the other collection of short stories. But there's all kinds of time jumps and retellings of things that happen, and then bouncing to the present where they're talking and then telling a story. So that is much more approachable in the book form, whereas when you're thrown into the show, I could completely understand why people were lost. I was for a couple of episodes until I understood it. I know I'm talking about the show a lot, but that was heavily based on The Last Wish, so that's why. But you meet all these different characters. You meet Dandelion, who is hilarious in all three of these formats, game, TV, and book. He's a fantastic sidekick character that brings a lot of comic relief to the stories that he's in, because, like I said, Geralt is stoic and quiet and very serious, and Dandelion is just the sarcastic idiot that tries to make light of every situation. Something I am very interested in is, I'm obviously going to read the second collection of short stories next, but I want to see where this actually goes, because I don't know anything about the actual main plot to Geralt's quest, or this book series. I really only knew about the short stories, and like I said, I knew about the games, which there's obviously a running quest line throughout that you follow, but I have no idea what the books are even about. I don't know what the main quest line is. I don't know what Geralt gets up to. I don't know what they do to lead to these other games that happen. Even stuff like the video game Thronebreaker, which is set in the Witcher universe, which I think might even be a prequel to the books. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. But I'm interested in seeing how that all ties in with the books, and how the book ties into all these different mediums, because I'm coming to the books last. So I'm super curious to see, what built all of this. And I've heard great things about this entire series, so I'm very excited to get back into it. I am not going to order the hideous American covers, which clearly just took screenshots from the games and slapped them on the front cover, and then fake stickers saying this is a Netflix series. I got that one because it's cool, and Barnes & Noble, I think, sells a ton of new editions that look like that too, and they're so good, except they have that stupid fake sticker on the front. But anyway, that's just me complaining about book covers now. But overall, The Last Wish was super cool. I like Geralt as a character. I was already pretty familiar with him, again, from being a video game nerd that I am. But I'm excited to see where this story goes. I want to see, stepping beyond the short stories and the fairy tale retellings, what this character and story is really about. So I'm excited to get to the rest of these books, and those are my thoughts on that one, though. So what did you all think? Were you guys interested in The Last Wish? Did you prefer the actual series more than the short stories? Did you know about the books? Did you play the games? Did you watch the TV show? I love all these so far, so I mean, like I said, I really want to read the rest of these books because I'm all about The Witcher. It's a fantastic series in general, from my knowledge of the games and now the books. But yeah, until next time, guys, keep reading.